Welcome to Amazement, a conversation about artificial intelligence and its impact on our lives, work, and society as a whole. I'm Maria, a surgical resident interested in exploring how AI is transforming the field of medicine and healthcare.
And I'm Donna, a technology business owner and entrepreneur. I'm exploring how AI is reshaping business and employment. Like many of you, Maria and I use generative AI tools now, like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude, and we want to know more about AI's growing influence in our daily lives.
Our podcast name, Amazement, honors my aunt and Donna's sister, Dr. Mary Ann Donovan, also known as Maze, whose work at the UPMC Hillman Cancer Center embodied the integration of science, medicine, and innovation that we're seeing with AI today.
We're here because we want to share what we're learning about artificial intelligence, bringing together perspectives from healthcare and technology. Let's start with something fun and practical. A head-to-head comparison of ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and Gemini. Let's test each one of these AIs with the same prompt, and this will show their unique strengths and personalities.
We've put together a set of prompts to test how ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and Gemini handle the same questions. Some are deep, some are funny, and all of them reveal something about how these AIs see the world.
So, how about you read the questions, Maria, and I will read the replies?
Sounds good. The first question we asked was, if Jesus came back to Earth today and saw the state that we are in, what would he say to us in one sentence?
ChatGPT replied, "Some of you built temples in my name, but forgot the part about loving each other." Claude responded, "You have built towers that touch the clouds, yet you still walk past your hungry neighbors. When will you understand that loving each other was always the whole point?" Gemini responded, "Love one another as I have loved you, for in your divisions you forget the kingdom is at hand." And Perplexity responded, "Love one another truly, care for the broken, and remember that faith means living with compassion, not just speaking of it."
The next question we asked was, if dogs could talk, what would they say about humans in one sentence?
And ChatGPT responded, "They love hard, worry too much, and forget that a walk fixes almost anything." And Claude responded, "They are weird about the sniffing thing, but they have the food and the good scratches, so we'll keep them around." And Gemini responded, "They give the best belly rubs, but why do they leave the house for so long and not take us with them?" And Perplexity responded, "We don't understand why you worry so much when all you need is love, snacks, and naps."
The last question, if you could send one text to all of humanity, what would it say?
And ChatGPT replied, "Remember, everything you do to others, you're doing to yourself in disguise." And Claude responded, "You have more in common with each other than you think, and the future depends far more on whether you can work together than on who wins today's arguments." Gemini replied, "You are all on the same team. Act like it." Perplexity replied, "Remember, every decision is a vote for the future. Choose kindness, think critically, protect truth, and act as if generations ahead are watching, because they are."
Super, super interesting.
Definitely.
The next thing we did to comprehensively summarize the personalities of these AI models, we asked Perplexity to assign a historical figure to represent each model.
And that was based on the answers that were given to those three prompt questions.
Exactly.
So it's interesting to see the historical figure that best represents, for example, ChatGPT. The historical figure is Charles Dickens. Why? Because the style of the answer was warm, accessible, and gently humorous, focuses on everyday wisdom, and highlights common flaws and hopes with empathy.
Like Charles Dickens, whose novels combines social commentary, heart, and wit, ChatGPT crafts relatable, down-to-earth answers that resonate with a broad audience.
Perplexity offers Maya Angelou as a historical figure that represents Claude's responses, the style being poetic, stirring, and morally centered. Claude uses evocative language and imagery to elevate common experiences into universal insights.
Like Maya Angelou, whose poetry and prose move readers through graceful, empathetic storytelling, Claude delivers responses that inspire and encourage reflection through artful phrasing.
Perplexity suggests that the historical figure that represents Gemini's responses would be someone like Julius Caesar, brief, direct, and memorable. Distills ideas into concise but impactful statements that are easy to remember and which convey authority.
Like Julius Caesar, famed for pithy quotes, Gemini delivers a clear, slogan like wisdom in a few well chosen words.
I can see that. Yeah. And for perplexity, the historical figure suggested is Eleanor Roosevelt, her style being practical, empathetic, and action focused. The answers offered thoughtful but approachable guidance anchored in real world betterment and personal responsibility.
Like Eleanor Roosevelt, whose public life embodied compassionate pragmatism and a call to ethical action, Perplexity's style is to combine deep care for humanity with realistic, empowering advice.
Those are all excellent historical figure analogies. I definitely think that the style of each AI's response seemed a bit different. So that was a good way to see that you're not getting the same answer from every AI, number one. And number two, that each one has been, I guess you could say, trained in a way that suggests a specific style.
Yeah, definitely. You see similar themes. We tested a bunch of different questions. These were just the ones that we
Yeah.
found the most enjoyable. Similar themes seem to appear, but each AI seems to offer its own insight. Now, you use more of these models than I do. I typically stick with ChatGPT, sometimes Claude. Do you agree with these historical figures that are assigned? Do you notice the differences in the personalities when you're using the different AIs?
I do notice a difference. I would say it's a subtle nuance that each one has.
Do you find yourself reaching for different AIs for different things? Like for me, for example, I'll ask more personal questions to ChatGPT because I feel like Claude is just trying to tell me what I want to hear. So if I'm in a dilemma and I ask both of them, I'll even say to Claude, it sounds like you're telling me what you think I want to hear, not being objective. And Claude will respond, yes, like I'm trying to give a response that I think you want versus ChatGPT leans a little more objective, in my opinion.
I use Perplexity a lot because I've just found it very useful as a searching and information resource. I use Claude for more planning and work related activity. I don't actually use ChatGPT a lot, although I'm using it more, mainly because I think I've just gotten used to Perplexity and Claude as my go tos. And I should use Gemini more. I guess the more you use all of the AI tools, the better, because you just become more familiar with them. Could you envision ever not using your AI assistants?
It's so
Mm,
helpful for things. I use it for a lot of busy work. I couldn't imagine not having it.
yeah. Just the time savings is so incredible, so valuable.
How do you think your life would change if your AI assistants were taken away?
I'd be so bummed because I use my AI assistants as a knowledge resource for a lot of things. If there's something that I learn about, I hear about in a podcast, for example, and it's a terminology or a field of science that I know very little or nothing about, I just go to my AI assistant and get informed. And I would be sad if I didn't have that.
Ready to catch up on what's moving the AI world forward?
This is AI Update. where we explore key developments in policy, research, and innovation. Now for our AI update segment. I'm going to feature insights from one of the most influential voices in technology today, and his name is Peter Diamandis. And for those of you who don't know Peter Diamandis, I'd like to give you some context about why his perspective matters so much with respect to AI and tech in general. Peter Diamandis is a serial entrepreneur, futurist, and physician. He has his MD from Harvard and received a BS and MS from MIT. He has founded more than 25 companies, including X Prize Foundation. He created Singularity University with Ray Kurzweil. He's been named among the world's 50 greatest leaders by Fortune magazine. He's a 4 times New York Times bestselling author. He wrote Abundance, Bold, Future is Faster Than You Think, and other books. He founded the Abundance 360 community and hosts the Abundance 360 Executive Summit every March in Los Angeles. He hosts the Moonshots Podcast, which is also known as WTF Just Happened in Tech This Week. And he has said his life mission is to enable entrepreneurs to create an abundant future for humanity. So I mentioned Peter Diamandis and his Moonshots podcast in particular because I recently, as in the past several months, found out about the Moonshots podcast. It's a weekly podcast that tracks the future of technology and the impact of technology on humanity. Peter hosts the podcast, which feature interviews with leading AI entrepreneurs, researchers, and tech titans. There's a focus on exponential technologies, sort of moonshot thinking in general, and solving global challenges. For example, recent topics have discussed AI surpassing human intelligence, singularity, wealth creation through artificial intelligence. There are more than 200 episodes already on YouTube in which he's featured guests like Ray Kurzweil, Elon Musk, Jeffrey Hinton, and other AI luminaries. It's definitely a podcast I recommend. The regular participants in the Moonshots podcast include Dave Blunden, who is a serial entrepreneur. He's founded more than 20 companies, 5 of which or more are unicorns. He teaches one of the most in-demand courses at MIT, which is AI for Impact. And he chairs and is on the board of several companies. Dave is fantastic to listen to. He's just so grounded in reality and just obviously very brilliant. Another regular is Salim Ismail, who's the founder of OpenEXO. Salim was a former vice president at Yahoo and a founding executive of Singularity University. He's also the author of Exponential Organizations and an expert on exponential business models and transformation. I think he has a lot of expertise in cryptocurrency as well. The fourth individual is Alexander Wiesner Gross. He's a computer scientist, the founder of Reified. Alex is so smart. Everyone on the podcast defers to Alex in terms of explaining complex topics related to AI and other scientific systems. He's a research scientist himself, and he's very familiar with concepts of physics and artificial intelligence and is an expert on computational complexity. This crew is just unbelievable. And it's really a gift to have the opportunity to listen to them. One other thing I'll mention is this Abundance 360 community that Peter Diamandis has organized. It's a very interesting sounding community of more than 500 entrepreneurs and CEOs. And once a year in March, there's an Abundance 360 summit held out in LA, as I mentioned. The Abundance 360 summit includes visionaries like Palmer Luckey, Vinod Khosla, Travis Kalanick, Ariana Huffington, and many, many more speakers. So I highly recommend watching the podcasts and take a look at what the Abundance 360 community and that summit is all about, because it really is a wealth of incredible information.
Question about the Moonshots podcast. What do you
Mhm.
think makes this podcast stand out from other tech shows? What's the draw for listeners who want to understand more of where AI is actually headed?
That's a good question because for me, this podcast is all about technology. It's such a fantastic opportunity to learn. And the individuals, Peter, Dave, Salim, and Alex, are top notch, leading luminaries, visionaries, and practitioners in technology. And the other thing I've noticed is as soon as I hear something has happened, like, for example, GPT-5 was released, there was a Moonshots podcast discussing that very quickly, within a day or 2, because as
Wow.
soon as something important happens, this group gets on the podcast and talks about it so that we stay informed.
Do you have an episode that's your favorite, or have you rewatched any episodes?
There was one recently that I actually don't remember the exact title of it, but it was about the fact that we have reached singularity, which is when humans and computers merge. And the whole podcast discusses that. And you get the perspective of the individuals I mentioned, and it is just mind blowing. Let's move from headlines to the front lines of medicine.
Welcome to AI Rounds, a closer look at how AI is transforming healthcare from the inside out. Let's talk about a startup that's been implemented across various hospitals and clinics called Ambience Healthcare. If you've ever seen a doctor typing away furiously, trying to keep a conversation going with their patient, but their back's to them, you know the issue that I'm talking about. It's clinical documentation, which takes hours out of a doctor's day every day. And it's quite unfortunate because that's time that could be spent actually caring for people. And that's the goal of Ambience, to give that time back to physicians. What they're doing, they're building an AI platform that listens during the visit between patient and physician and automatically generates documentation, coding, referral letters, and even after visit summaries, all in real time. It's like a silent assistant that's sitting in and listening in on every encounter. So the story behind Ambience, it was founded in 2020 in San Francisco by Michael Ng and Nigel Buduma. Both have very strong AI and data science backgrounds. Buduma worked on deep learning research at Google Brain and MIT, and Ng led analytics teams before jumping into healthcare. They launched Ambience with backing from investors like Andreessen Horowitz, the OpenAI startup fund, and later Optum Ventures. So here's how it works. Ambience essentially captures the natural conversation that's happening between the clinician and the patient using what's called ambient voice AI, hence the name. And then almost instantly, it turns that dialogue into a structured medical note inside the electronic health record, complete with the assessment, plan, and diagnoses, which are coded for billing purposes.
Oh,
It can also automate compliance checks and billing codes, which means fewer errors, faster turnaround, and less time spent on paperwork. And the best part about all of this is that it doesn't force any workflow change. Doctors and nurses can keep doing what they're doing, and the AI handles that background documentation. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons it's gaining traction so quickly. If an AI system can help clinicians finish their notes before they leave the hospital, that's more time with the patients and maybe even more time for themselves after work. It's been pretty well adopted. It started its pilot in 2024 across more than 80 specialties. And by February of 2025, it began a full rollout within Cleveland Clinic. And within just 15 weeks, roughly 4,000 clinicians were using Ambience across Cleveland Clinic's network. And since then, it's expanded to various systems like UCSF Health, Houston Methodist, and it continues to scale. So, why does this all matter? Ambience isn't just about convenience, it's about addressing a major clinician labor shortage. and the administrative overload that drives people out of medicine. You're offloading essentially the clerical load that
Mm,
physicians face, and it helps restore some humanity to clinical care because now patients are getting more eye contact with their doctor. They're not talking to their back, and doctors are getting more breathing room. And I think it's a great example of AI not replacing clinicians, but assisting them in restoring their focus on what only humans can do. So, listening, connecting, making judgment calls
right.
that an algorithm can't necessarily do.
So prior to ambience, the physicians would be typing away what you say. I'm curious if at this point or at some point in the future, does or will ambience include suggestions based on the conversation, perhaps on a complaint that the patient had, maybe even suggest diagnoses for a problem that the patient is complaining about? Do you think that's built in at all or will be built in? Almost like an assistant to the physician to diagnose.
I'm not sure if this company is working on that specifically. I know there are other companies that are working on kind of AI physician assistants. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the direction that this technology moves.
Yeah. I wonder if the physician has to disclose to the patient that an AI is actually listening in and transcribing.
It's HIPAA compliant, but I'm sure they would have to tell the patient.
Anything that helps physicians would be, I would think, welcome because you don't want the physician bogged down with administrivia. That's just not necessary and not helpful. So we'll keep an eye on ambience.
We've seen how AI is transforming the medical field. Now let's explore its impact across industries.
In this segment, AI at Work, we'll dive into how AI is reshaping careers, business models, and the very nature of work. Speaking of note taking assistants, for our AI at Work segment today, I wanted to share what I've been doing with respect to investigating AI meeting assistants. The reason I have thought about this is because not too long ago, I had a consult with a landscape designer. And when she left, I got an email from Otter AI, and I realized that Andrea had recorded the whole conversation and that there was a note taking assistant participating in that conversation with me that came up with a list of next steps. And I was so impressed by that. And I realized this is something that I should include in my day to day in my business. I do a lot of note taking whenever I'm conversing with someone or whenever I have meetings with various individuals. So I've been evaluating four options. There's Otter AI. That is one that I'm somewhat familiar with because I have used it. Fireflies, Read AI, and Fathom. These are all note taking AIs. The big selling point for all of them is for a nominal amount per month. You can save hours weekly on transcribing meeting notes and following up on things. So, similar to our conversation about ambience assisting physicians, it just makes sense to have an AI listen in on my meetings and take notes for me and come up with next steps. That said, there are important privacy considerations, especially here in Massachusetts, because you always need to have two-party consent when individuals are being recorded. The key features that I'm considering, the accuracy of the transcription, detection of action items, I think that's gonna be a great benefit. Integration with my calendar and other tools that I use, and the quality of the summary of each one of these tools.
Very interesting. These tools claim to be 90 to 95% accurate in detection of action items. Do you trust them to actually capture the nuance of a meeting?
I won't know until I actually try them. That's why I'm approaching this as an experiment or a trial to see, and I'll be able to assess which one works best for me, and I'll be able to confirm or question the accuracy of those claims by using the tools.
Do you think these AI note takers are going to become standard like Zoom, or do you think there's going to be resistance to having AIs in every meeting?
I'll be honest, I think there will be resistance because it's just something new.
Last question for you. As a business owner, you have an interesting perspective. So, if you could design your ideal AI meeting assistant, what would it do that none of these tools claim to do yet, if anything?
I would like it to take the next step, not just identify what the action items are, but actually get started working on those action items. Now, I don't know if that exists. I don't think so. I would love to see automation in that sense as well. That was AI in the workplace. Now, how about AI in your pocket?
This is AI Toolbox, where we break down practical ways to use AI in your daily routine. For our AI Toolbox, I wanted to talk about using different AI tools for emails because let's be honest, email is the quiet productivity killer that no one really talks about. Most professionals spend 2 to 3 hours a day dealing with their emails, and a lot of that time is quite repetitive scheduling, follow ups, polite declines, things that all kind of start to sound the same after a while.
Mhm.
And this is where AI actually earns its keep. So tools like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, and Google's new Help Me Write feature in Gmail can actually draft, edit, and summarize emails in seconds. And they're getting quite good at matching tone. So whether you need something formal, casual, empathetic, and even translating on the fly for multilingual teams. An interesting tie into healthcare, its implication is huge. Recent studies showed that models like ChatGPT can actually write quite empathetic, guideline consistent replies to patient messages, even better than clinicians can, or as well.
Mhm.
And again, the idea isn't to replace the human touch, but it's to cut the inbox burden that keeps doctors glued to their screen after hours. I use AI daily when drafting emails. I typically use ChatGPT, like I said. I'll kind of give it all the information. I typically draft the email first and have it clean it up and say to maintain my tone of voice. If I'm speaking with superiors, I'll say, "This is for my boss. Please keep the tone appropriate." I've also had it draft the emails for me and then I go through and edit after. And it honestly saves so much time for me in my day to day. But there are trade offs. There's the privacy issue. So sensitive data shouldn't be passed through public AI tools. There's the risk that everyone's emails start sounding the same. And then dependence, losing your own authentic voice if you rely on the AI too heavily. So that's where I try to view it as a partnership.
Mm.
I let the AI handle the cleaning up and the structure, and I add my nuance, judgment, warmth to keep my tone of voice.
Mhm.
I think it's a very underrated tip. As I've started talking to friends, they've started doing this too and have raved about how much time they're saving by using AI to help with their emails.
I know that all of our staff uses AI in their communication with clients because they know that the output is much more professional. A lot of times the email is a technical explanation of something, and it's just easier to have the AI craft the response to the client that is well stated and clear, something that the AI does much more efficiently and effectively. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Amazement. Thank you for joining us as we explore the fascinating world of artificial intelligence.
Your engagement makes this podcast even better. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so share your feedback. It helps other curious minds discover our conversations.
Do you have questions about AI? Do you want to suggest a topic for us to explore? Do you know of someone who would make a great guest on Amazement? If so, we definitely want to hear from you.
And remember to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. We've got fascinating discussions ahead as we continue to explore artificial intelligence.
Thank you for being part of the Amazement community. Until next time, keep exploring, questioning, and learning about this fascinating topic.